it was prearranged by the White House administration so that Trump could justify having the ballroom built on the White House premises. Regardless of the left or the right, whenever you become radically indoctrinated, it creates extreme behavior. Many people who have had challenges with mental health are actually quite intelligent. I think the human nature thing is that we are all very individualistic and we live based on what is important to us.
Yeah, you look at young people today, it is very clear that there is a large group of young children that just are not right. There is 100% a correlation between mental health and gut health and what you're eating, and even goes down to how well you're using the bathroom.
Really concerned about the younger population because of the fact that this is the world in which they grew up and they never knew anything different.
I think that a lot of mental health in America today is attributed to social media. And the advert of social media and the lack of real communication, the lack of real interaction with human beings. I think it's feminism. I think it's feminism too, causes a lot of depression. I think that it's the medication. I think it's the school system. And I think it's the nutrition. And I think it's the society of crash out culture and hustle culture and all these different cultures.
We've got to become more intentional as a country about the importance of whole foods that are nutritious and healthy, and using that as the foundation of our health, as opposed to waiting until we get sick and using medication as the foundation. Get back to really emphasizing the importance of exercise and of using sports and the interaction. I think that just collectively as a country, we need to start having those types of conversations about the importance of raising resilient, mentally tough kids, because we're raising a bunch of cupcakes. Iran understands that it has a stronghold in the Strait of Hormuz, and that is a very powerful point of leverage. And I believe that they're not going to give that up, because it creates an opportunity for them to gain more power. The longer this goes on, the more pressure is being exerted on the United States from afar, because there could be humanitarian crises that begin to erupt.
How do you not allow dictatorships to become cancers and then result in world wars? Because realistically, that's what happened with World War I. That's what happened with World War II. Oftentimes, America is forced to be brought into a lot of situations because someone's looking to be helped.
Look at the history of America's aggressive actions on other countries. It's typically for two reasons. One is because they have oil and we need it. And two, they have access to other places so we could strategically place military bases there. We use the idea of stability and of democracy and spreading democracies as justification.
Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
Obviously, there's been a whole lot of stuff going on since
on the top of your mind these days.
Well, I was just shocked yesterday. I was just literally just enjoying my day yesterday. And then all of a sudden, I just happened to open my phone. I hadn't looked at my phone in a long time, and I just happened to open it. And then all of a sudden, when I open my phone, I see that there's this attack, or that there's this at the White House press dinner. I didn't even know they still did those. I didn't even know that they still had done those.
The last one, I guess, but yeah.
And what's odd about it is that it was done at the same exact hotel that it's the same Hilton that they tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan at. So I'm kind of just scratching my head here right now going, at what point do we stop doing events there now at this point? Is there a security lapse? Is there something going on there? Or is there just some weird Matrix thing happening? Some weird Matrix stuff happening that's going on right now?
You know what the conspiracy theorists are saying, right?
I haven't even gone down any of the rabbit holes right now. I was going to ask you a question about something, and I got to remember it. So tell me while I'm trying to remember what I wanted to ask you about that. You can hit me with the conspiracies, because I haven't even heard anything about it yet. I've literally just been catching the headlines, and I've read a little bit about it. I read the manifesto, so I read that. Okay. I'm sure there's all kinds of conspiracies going on. I saw all the angles of how everybody came out and how it went down. So I'm curious.
Deep. It's not super deep. There's probably other ones out there, I'm sure. But the one I think that's been at least occupying the most space in my head was the conspiracy theory that it was prearranged by the White House administration so that Trump could justify having the ballroom built on the White House premises. And so by removing the East Wing, replacing the ballroom there, you eliminate the security issue and you put it on a fortress, essentially. And so people were saying, because Trump brought it up during the press conference, that there was this move to have this person come from California all the way to Washington to create enough of a hubbub to say, this is the reason why we need the White House ballroom.
You don't believe that, do you?
Absolutely not. That's ridiculous.
Oh, I just thought of it, by the way. I just thought of what I wanted to ask you. Okay. What I thought that I think is, because I know how much you like Kash Patel. And
that's my guy.
Yeah, that's your guy, right? Okay, but so did you read the manifesto, or did you look at the manifesto?
No. I haven't read it.
Okay, so the manifesto in what's the proper word for this? I'm going to paraphrase it, right? Okay, that's where I'm just going to truncate it all down. But basically, the manifesto is I'm going to target every Trump official and cabinet member that's at this meeting. And this is where the words become explicit or become in quotes, except for Mr. Patel.
Really?
So why, and why the choice of words and using, hey, I'm going to target. So pretty much I'm targeting everybody in here except for Mr. Patel. Why?
When you read that, where did it land for you?
I immediately thought of you, and I put the burden of you answering that question.
Okay. I'm trying to process this real time, because to me, I think when I think of Kash Patel, I think of a person that's on the hot seat, and I think that he's doing everything he can to keep himself as the person still running the FBI. And considering all of the mishaps that he's had with the whole blunder with the Olympic team and how he strikes back during his congressional hearings and how he talked about, I'll see you at Valhalla, and we got him on the 33rd hour with regard to Charlie Kirk. I just think that the person must be thinking, again, I'm thinking real time here. The person must be thinking, okay, somehow, some way, Kash Patel is different. He's from the outside, and maybe he aligned with his views while he was on the podcast. And because he knows that he's going to get fired, maybe that makes him different than everybody else. But I don't see any real validation for that, because from what I heard about the manifesto, not having read it, is that the gentleman's main issue was with people who engaged in pedophilia, and also the officials that allowed pedophilia to happen without people being held accountable. And so because other people aren't holding them accountable, I'm going to take it on myself to go and hold these people accountable. He never mentioned the president, from what I heard, unless you can tell me if I'm wrong. From what I understand, he never mentioned the president specifically by name, outside of the fact that high-ranking officials needed to be held accountable because of their vile acts with regard to pedophilia.
It just sounds so familiar to the quote unquote story of the Charlie Kirk assassination, right? Mm-hmm. He was going there under the same premises. Obviously, Charlie Kirk was the target, right? Solely the target. This guy was just a blanket target of all Trump and Trump officials, right? Yeah. So why is it that to me, I look at it and I go, okay, why is is this a pattern again? And by the way, this guy spent like a lot of time getting educated in California. I think he had a master's degree, Len. So this guy was
he was a teacher, and from what I remember,
that's scary. I didn't know he was a teacher. That makes it even more scarier for me.
He used to be a high school teacher, or he was a high school teacher, and he got his master's from like California Institute of Technology.
So is this just further the radicalization of anybody that gets indoctrinated into something crazy in California? I mean, that's really what this is.
Dig. That's a good dig, Chris. I think though
how do you explain it then? How do you explain that's the best that comes out of California right now? That's
what I think it is that regardless of the left or the right, whenever you become radically indoctrinated, it creates extreme behavior. And I think when people begin to believe that they are doing the act in the will of God and they have to go and take matters into their own hands, I think this is the manifestation of that. And I would not be surprised if all of the investigation is done and they find out that there's a history of mental health challenges. I bet you, I'm willing to bet a large amount that there's some mental health challenges in background there.
So wait a minute. Okay. That's a great point that you bring up. And that actually, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think like, I don't want to start talking about Iran again right now, even though we're probably going to end up talking about that and the blockade and everything that's going on with that, because I just feel like we already know there's nothing really even new going on with that's on the surface, rather than the new. It just seems like a tiptoe, and I don't want to get down to that right now. But what I do find very interesting is the fact that you did bring up mental health. Okay. All right. So you're saying that this guy might have had a history of mental health. And what's interesting about that is that this is a very I would say he's a highly educated person. He was a very highly educated. If you're in a master's territory, would you consider that highly educated?
Definitely, for sure.
Okay. What's average educated? High school education? Is that, would you get that, or would you consider a 2-year? What's a 2-year degree?
I would say the average education is high school, and about 30% of the population, give or take 5%, are college educated. So
what is that? A 2-year degree?
That's a 4-year degree.
Okay. What's the 2-year degree? Is there a 2-year degree?
Associate's degree, but that's like
your prereqs, right?
Your prerequisites for your specific area of study.
In other words, I understand advanced math and English is what that is.
Pretty much.
Who made up this archaic system anyways? Because I didn't even take those classes. So, I mean, I guess I'm kind of screwed if anything else happens, because I mean, if I ever needed to prove that I have an education, I'm toast.
Well, the good thing is, man, you're in a country where entrepreneurship rewards those who solve problems. And so less and less are the successful ones. In fact, there was a study, I think we talked about it on another episode, where for the first time, I want to say ever, that a high school educated person is actually out earning individuals who graduated from college. And that
really,
yes.
I think that has to do with the fact that you have data being skewed in there now from like gig economy and then social media, like content creation and things like that, because it's so, I mean, think about it, Len, when you and I were growing up, it was very difficult to become a celebrity. Like it wasn't easy. Like if you were on a magazine,
before channels. I mean, you had NBC, ABC, channel 11, 13. So.
Exactly. So today you could become a celebrity so much more easier. You could get on a content creating platform and you can go run away with it.
Yep.
But I think that what's interesting about when you say mental health and you're bringing that up is, okay, how is it that someone who's this highly educated has a mental health problem? How did someone who went this highly educated, went through so many school systems, so many different tests, right? Because we test people constantly. My kids are doing STAR testing right now. They hate it, right? Is that like, and that's another thing too, isn't that STAR testing? Isn't that government? Isn't that standardized? That's like
standardized test. Yeah. All schools across the country do it because they have to measure themselves against a singular norm. So if everybody used different measures, you can't tell how well we're doing in English, math, so on and so forth.
Since you said conspiracy theory at the beginning, is that a way to find like brain children? Is that a government program to find highly educated people in the school system and go, we will be recruiting you to the military?
Oh, that's funny that you say that, because is a program called GATE, Gifted and Talented Education.
Yes. See, I knew you would know about these government conspiracy theories, Len. You're the educators that design this stuff.
And then you have Mensa and things like that. So you have all of these different ways for kids to be targeted as being intelligent. And there's back channels where they are approached, and depending upon what those those other factors are. So for example, from what I've heard, the CIA looks for people who are highly intelligent, but also who are disconnected from their family. Maybe they had parents that divorced or were killed or things like that, where they don't have a lot of people in their social circle that would wonder where they are or that would question a difference in behavior. And so it makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of you want people to, do all of these clandestine types of activities internationally. But I'm not an expert on that, but that's just, what I've read and I've heard. So, but I'm really interested on your mental health take, because you talked about the fact that if they're highly educated, is how would mental health challenge them? In fact, you'll find that many, many people who have had challenges with mental health are actually quite intelligent. So like, for example, one of the more famous people, like when you look at Kanye West and his documented challenges, if you look at him musically, he's a genius. You look at JFK, a lot of people, there's been other presidents, I can't name them off the top of my head, but they've had a history of mental health challenges. In fact, and this is, I'm going to veer a little bit away from mental health, but we're talking about the brain. A lot of people who have things like Asperger's and, different elements like that are very, very intelligent. In fact, Elon Musk has some type of, I think somewhere along that spectrum of Asperger's and things like that. So, there's a highly, highly, highly intelligent people, some geniuses that have other challenges that actually puts them in a position to be more creative, to be more driven, to be more focused. So it's a lot of people who are smart.
So if he did have these challenges, right? And you're saying that
I have not read.
You're just speculating. You're just speculating. Here's the thing, though. Did you see and it's a good speculation, because here's the thing. Did you see the clip of him when they captured him
out on the ground with
and he's eating the carpet? He's like chewing the carpet or something. Did you see that
video? I only saw a still picture.
No, there's a video of it, and there's a video of him chewing the carpet. Like he's like chewing the carpet up, Len. Like a dog would like chew, like you would see a dog chew on a dog toy, like a dog. And it's very weird. And you're watching it, and you're like, "What the hell is going on with this?" It's a very bizarre.
Yeah, I have to check that out.
It's a very bizarre thing, but I'm also like sitting here wondering, like, how did he even get through the front door? Like, how does you can't?
That's $1 million question.
Like, how is this happening already again? Like, and then the Secret Service comes out and says he didn't get to anybody. Well, what if
he got to the building?
He got inside the door, bro.
Right.
And then I'm thinking, like, well, he didn't get anybody. Okay, but what if he had a dirty bomb on him and he just blew himself up, and then all of a sudden you've got, whatever, like you've got whatever the word is, Len, microlized, and it's now aerosoled, right? And now it's all over the air, and everyone's dying of inhalation of whatever, poison gas in the air, sarin gas or whatever the hell it is. Like, what's to stop something from happening? I just don't understand the lapse in security for something like this. And considering how many lines of succession were in the room last night, how many you had the president, you had the vice president, you had the secretary of defense, and then who else was in there? I mean,
if this was the equivalent of when the Iranians were bombed by the U.S. and Israel.
Yes, that's freaking wild, dude. Was Marco Rubio there?
Consequences. I don't know specifically.
I don't think he was.
Would not have been. But
I don't think he was.
Any evidence of him being there? So, but
I don't know.
Wild.
Did you see the clip of Dana White when Dana White was sitting there? Len, you got to look at this stuff. It's wild, dude.
I saw a lot, but I didn't see everything.
You know what? You know why it's not shocking to anybody right now? And this is exactly what I was afraid of when Charlie Kirk got assassinated. You know what I mean? You start seeing this kind of stuff, and then
you get decent.
you know what I mean? Everybody has become so desensitized now to this because they're just like, oh, it just happens all the time. It's just something that happens. Who cares?
Yeah.
And that's the most scariest thing about it. Just kind of like how I'm sure you're upset, Len, that, you know, or it probably bothers you, or probably maybe it's something that you think about. It's probably something that I don't think about, but someone like you probably thinks about when you're sitting there thinking about, well, there actually is still a live conflict or live something going on, and people are dying and because of wars right now, or because of a war right now, and people are just driving around going to get Taco Bell right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But so shouldn't they, though? They have their own problems. They're worrying about their mental health. They're worrying about how they're going to pay their mortgage in 2 weeks or a week. Mm-hmm. So why should they care about the crap that's going on over there? Or should they just live in ignorance by it? I mean, is that just the way it works?
I think the human nature thing is that we are all very individualistic, and we live based on what is important to us. And so when you look at different video pictures that's in Iran or in Israel, people are going about their lives. And so you would think if there's war going on, because we don't understand what it's like to have war on American soil, not at least in a present day context, of course, with the Revolutionary War and things like that. But that's so far.
But that's so far gone. Nobody
exactly.
knows
That's
what that
not
is
in
anymore.
the collective consciousness of people, and so we don't understand what it's like to live in a war-torn occupation, and we don't understand what it's like to say, okay, look, we've got to go and we've got to work, we've got to feed our children, we've got to live our lives. And so because of that separation, both mentally and geographically, I think we kind of distance ourselves from that. And so to your point, Chris, it does upset me that you have all of this calamity and catastrophe going on in the world, and there's almost this sense of obliviousness to it, to a certain degree. But then the other part of me is thinking, you know what? We've got to really be clear about the importance of how people conduct themselves when they're in positions of power. And then also, how do you regulate between safety and liberty? You know, Benjamin Franklin said something to the effect of, you know, if you give up your liberty for even a small amount of over safety, like you're really in a, let me read it. I'm going to find it because it's,
you got to read the exact thing because this is the language. See, that's the thing though, is that people forget, you know, they forget how language is said.
Yes.
And a lot of times it's actually not what's heard, or it's not the words. It's actually, I'm trying to explain this, but it's actually the way things are said that matters versus the actual words, or what you understand what I'm talking about.
I'm going to read the quote to you. It says, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty or safety." Liberty or safety. And so to me, that begs the question. I wanted to throw this at you, is going back to the original question that I had about the conspiracy, is that, okay, if you have a White House that has a ballroom, it's replaced the East Wing, but it's a safe place. And so do you think that it's worth it to, you know, go ahead and forsake history and just go ahead and move forward and have a ballroom there? What are your thoughts about that?
So the first thing I want to say before we move on, when you described, or when you said the Ben Franklin quote, you know who that sounded exactly like to me?
Who?
It sounded like NATO.
Oh wow! I'm surprised you drew that parallel.
I just like when you said that quote, I felt like he was describing NATO just now to me.
Okay,
like that's I just had to get that off my chest.
You wove that together.
Like, I don't know how it just came up that fast, but these things, they just happened in my head this way, Len, and I went, "Whoa, NATO! That sounds like someone." Like if you could just say, you know, when they do those things when they're interviewing somebody, it was really popular during COVID. and they'd ask somebody, you just name somebody's name, and you just, the first thing that comes to your mind. And as soon as you said that, the first thing that came to my mind was NATO.
So you're saying that you disagree with those sentiments?
No,
a founding father.
I don't disagree with them. I'm thinking is that NATO, it sounds like NATO when
Use that as one of their premises to exist.
Yeah, because they're the one at the end. They don't deserve either. That's how they operate. Because they have given up a lot of, I mean, if you've ever been around and not, I mean, you and I traveled, there's a difference when you travel in European countries versus you travel in America. There's a lot of cool things. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love traveling Europe. I've traveled to almost everywhere in Europe, but you do feel the sense that you've lost, you do lose some freedoms. You do lose some liberties. So that goes without saying. I don't really know where I stand on the ballroom thing, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because I do know, let me just tell you this about the ballroom. I dismissed the ballroom, Len, or stopped following the ballroom thing as soon as the press started making it almost like an anchor point to say that Trump was doing something bad or illegal with building this ballroom. Mm-hmm. I mean, the history, I did do this though, because I don't want to be too ignorant to it, but the White House has been like remodeled like a lot. Mm-hmm. Like there's been a lot of changes. So, and every president, I didn't know this, but until like least recently, and when I say recently, over the last few years, that every single one of them changes like the general color scheme or whatever of the Oval Office every time they're in there. Mm-hmm. And one of them was like, Nixon's is really cool, by the way. You ought to go look at them. Like Nixon's is, I think, is the coolest one, I think, out of all of them, if you go look at them.
Okay.
And just the way they do overhead views of every White House Oval Office. So to me, it's like, he's probably making it better. I mean, he's a real estate developer. So who wouldn't, number one, is anyone shocked that he's doing it? He's a real estate developer, number one. Mm-hmm. So is anybody even shocked that he's doing something like this? And number two, who best to do some type of remodel to the White House than someone who understands real estate and understands budgets? Because the last thing we want is somebody like a Joe Biden doing it, or an administration like that doing it, or even, God forbid, a Gavin Newsom administration, because it would never get done and it would cost 100x the estimate.
Well, do you know what the budget is for the ballroom? $400 million. And that's the rub, because here's the thing, a little bit of background about it, because I know that you said that you pushed it to the side, which is fine. And so that's what we're here for, man, so the issue, the rub is that he decided to have the East Wing demolished. And so I guess the mindset was it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And so because of that, here's the rub, is that Congress needs to has to approve actions like that. And Congress did not. And so that reinforces the left's belief that he's just going to do what he wants, when he wants, how he wants, right? But then you have different rules and procedures that are congressional, and they need to provide approval. And so with the $400 spend, the reason why Congress has to approve of it is because that's taxpayer money. So the other rub is that there are other donors who have contributed to the building of this ballroom. And so then that goes to the question of, okay, well, if they're helping make donations to build this ballroom, what benefits are they getting in return? And so you've got to have that system of checks and balances so that the process is transparent, so that taxpayer money isn't being used in conjunction with other donors who could potentially benefit from making monetary donations. And so if it were, just putting some paint and some furniture in the Oval Office, who cares about that? It's no big deal. Now, I'm really agnostic as it relates to this, because I could see reasons to have a ballroom because of what happened the other day. It's a secure location. There are going to be events that are large in nature. It gives people an opportunity to visit the White House, which is a prestigious opportunity. It keeps things safe from a presidential militaristic standpoint. I wish the cost was a little less than $400 million, of course, but overall, man, I could argue to have it. I could argue against having it. And, like I have no dog in that fight, but just wanted to give you a little bit of background because, one thing about Trump, some people argue that man isn't smart. Let me tell you, anytime he gets an opportunity to share his message, he does not miss an opportunity. And so when he did the press conference, he said, look, we had if we had the ballroom at the White House, none of this would have happened because the place is a secure facility. And so, it's just interesting how he always takes those opportunities, which is brilliant.
I didn't even look at it with that perspective. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I didn't even think about it from that point, Len, and to even look at it that way. And it does make sense, right? It does make a lot of sense for him to do that and to have that and maybe even to have a ballroom. And I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. The Kremlin has a ballroom, right? I'm sure like in China, in the CCP, there's a ballroom somewhere. I'm sure even what's his name has a ballroom, Zelensky. Why shouldn't the United States have a ballroom? I mean, we ought to have a ballroom. I mean, Buckingham Palace, Buckingham House has a ballroom, I bet. So we ought to have a ballroom. We ought to have a ballroom. And who knows, maybe it'll force the private venues like Hilton to get their act together because ultimately they should have been securing it as well. I mean, I understand that maybe Secret Service.
I think that's Secret Service protocol, man.
And they take over. But seriously,
that's hard though, because not to jump.
So maybe you are the Hilton and you're mad then at the Secret Service because you're like, bro, get this together, dude. Like, what's going on right now?
I know it's difficult because, like, okay, when you have an event that's a public event and a private event, a public place and a private venue, and you've got high security stakes, it's really tough to mix the two because what do? You pat everybody down going into a hotel. If you pat me down coming into a hotel, I'm going to have some real issues with that because I don't want to give up my liberty, right? I don't want to go if I go abroad and I travel to a place and I have to walk through a metal detector or I have to, get patted down, I'm going to feel a certain kind of way about that. And so I don't like that idea. And so I do think that there is credence to having a ballroom because, what do? Go through every room and search for, weaponry and all of that. That doesn't even make sense because it's just you give up too much. And so I definitely understand your point about, why not have a ballroom at the White House?
And then the further thing too is and you mentioned it, and I got to jump on it. Is I don't think anybody in Congress or Senate has any room to say anything about budget concerns about the ballroom. They have way more things to worry about and to think about and to solve than looking at the ballroom budget or whatever's going on with the ballroom. Like I'm sure the White House can handle that one. Like, have you driven down the 10 freeway across country? Have you driven down like the pavement in some federal lands? Have you looked at a lot of things here? Like, have you dealt with TSA? Have you dealt with any myriad of things that could be dealt with? Like, lawmakers, go look at California and just go fix the like at this point, you know how like a bank, like the federal government comes in and takes over a bank, like an FDIC bank seizure or bank receivership comes in and this bank's going to fail, right? At this point, the federal government, Congress and Senate, if they're responsible, if they are willing to open their mouths and complain about the ballroom modification at the White House, then what they ought to do is they ought to, at this point, put California under federal receivership because realistically, like, how are you not going and complaining about that? Like, that's like that's the biggest financial leak in America today is California, followed up maybe by Minnesota. It's like almost like if you've ever watched like a anime. Have you ever watched anime, Len?
No, you haven't. I know what it is, but I haven't sat down and watched.
Okay, so like if somebody gets shot or like let's say they get like their finger cut off, it's just the blood it's over exaggerated, right? Like it just spews out of it. Like if you were to put California in an animation, like if you drew California fiscally, California is just this it's just anime blood splattering out. That's the United States.
That makes me think of the Bugs Bunny commercial, Bugs Bunny shows when you get shot and he's got all these sprinklers of blood, water.
Yes.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's happening right now. It's like
you never take an episode off to just leave California alone, but you know what? It's well deserved, man, because fiscally
Steyer's going to be governor. You know that, right? Like Steyer looks like it's going to be Steyer for governor there in California.
It looks that way.
How do we not vote Hilton in? I don't understand this. Like, what's going on over there? Like, why? Why is Hilton not even like? Why Steyer? Steyer's been trying since I was in high school, I think. Like nothing good is going to come out of that. Do you even think like that's the progress?
Isn't he the
California
mayor in San Jose? Isn't he the mayor in San Jose? Is that Steyer?
I have no idea. Is he mayor now? No, isn't he like a tech billionaire or something like that?
Oh, got you. So I think Steyer, he has the money right now, and there's a vacuum of leadership.
He's 68 years old. See, that's the problem, dude. 68.
Who's the governor of San Jose? I think he's going to be a runner.
He's a San Francisco-based hedge fund, as well as Next Gen America, progressive. See, he's a progressive. See, but he's a billionaire. He's a progressive billionaire. So he's one of those.
Matt Mahan is I think the front runner, if I'm not mistaken.
Who?
Matt Mahan. He's the mayor in San Jose. And so,
that's like the Newsom. That's the insider candidate. That's the Kamala candidate.
He's
the Kamala candidate.
Insider, but nobody has.
You know what that is, right, Len? You know what a Kamala candidate is, right, Len?
Moving right along.
What's a Kamala? Len, do you know what a Kamala candidate? You know what a Kamala candidate?
I've never heard the term before. I think you're making it up, but I mean, I'm assuming that you're talking about a person who gets in positions and they didn't earn it, and so
the fact that you know what it is.
I mean, I'm halfway intelligent. I've never heard the term before, but in reality, no person right now has even a 20%.
It's too soon to tell.
It's way too soon. So I want to talk about some other things, man. We've been taking a look at. We've been talking about the Strait of Hormuz and all of those things. We could either go there, or we could talk about mental health and gut health. Where do you want to go with the conversation, man? Because
I think already I think for me already, since we were talking about it with the perpetrator from last night in mental health. Because I would be curious to know what his diet was. I'd be curious to know, Len, what did he eat? What was his diet like? What was his nutrition like? Because I do think that today, if you just, I don't know how to say this without being offensive. Okay. I'm just saying this with complete 100% pragmatism. If you look around today and you just clinically look, and I'm not judging anybody, but it's easy to tell. But if you walk around today and you clinically look at people today, you look at young people today, it is very clear that there is a large group of young children that just are not right. There's a mental, and I think we touched a little bit on this with like carrying around support animals and things like that. And I know there are some of them that are used for autism and things of that nature. Yeah. But there is an overwhelming majority of kids today. And I can't help but wonder that absolutely has to do with nutrition and what they're eating, because what's fascinating now is you're starting to see all these very long-term and large, participant studies that are actually linking and are now linking, like you said, gut microbiome health with the rest of your health, not just mental health, but cardiovascular health, your general overall health, your organs, how your body operates, your digestive system, and colorectal cancer. So absolutely, there's a massive of thing going on. And a lot of people just don't know it. They just don't understand it. And they're just, and again, that goes down back to what I think is that there are some meaningful changes that are being made, but I think it's difficult when when you have freedom of choice, because everyone doesn't want to eat healthy. So that, I think, is the paradigm where it's like, for example, I know there's a difference. I can tell now with confidence, Len, and I can tell you this with confidence, that I can tell you the difference between a teenager that is eating seed oils and a teenager that is not eating seed oils. I could tell it. I could clinically tell you if someone is eating seed oils versus not. And I know because the tells are so drastic that is just unbelievable. You can't even believe it. So, and you do see it. You do absolutely see it in academics, social behaviors, use of devices, all of those different things.
Yeah.
There is 100% a correlation between mental health and gut health and what you're eating, and even goes down to how well you're using the bathroom. And I know that's weird to talk about for a lot of people, but it's not. I don't think it's weird at all. I think you ought to be checking that stuff. But yes, there's a complete, and you're seeing these studies now. And I started taking, I'm not advertising for anybody, but I started taking a well-known supplement for gut, to replace gut flora. I started taking it about
probiotic.
Yeah. It's a certain kind that you can take, and it delays and it releases a certain way so that the actual organisms actually get into your gut and they don't get killed in your gut acid. So I started taking that like 2 or 3 years ago, and I will tell you that made a massive difference in a lot of different things for me, and in measurable ways to track it, in blood work, everything. So it's not an ace in the hole, I don't think, for a lot of things, but I think it when it comes to overall health, I think it's a very big factor. I would put it more than a 50% factor on how everything feels for you, especially mental health.
Yeah, I think it's all connected. And so when you look at diet, when you look at lifestyle, when you look at stress, when you look at all of those factors combined, I think that's what paints the whole picture. So let's talk about diet. I think over the years, we've gone from whole unprocessed foods to super processed foods to using, genetically modified foods, using, highly saturated fatty foods, highly processed foods, highly enriched sugars and white flour in our foods. When you look at what do you call it? The corn starch, and
modified food starch, modified corn starch.
Yes, all of those things. High fructose corn syrup, which he has these really highly addictive factors in it. And so when you're eating that, and then the other factor is the fact that people, like when you and I were younger, what would we do? We'd go out of the house because before, being told to stay in the house, that was punishment. And now that's what everybody does. They go to school, they come back home, and now they're in front of their computers, they're in front of their televisions. Whereas for us, we would get out and go ride our bikes. And I don't want to sound like the old guy in the room, but physical activity, playing football, and, instead of flag footballs, we take socks and hang them outside of our belts and go to the school that was down the street and play football and basketball. And we would do these different types of activities. And by the time we came inside, we were ready to eat, but what did we have to eat? We had oranges and we had apples and, things like that. I'm not trying to say that we didn't eat sweets and, I'm not trying to glorify those days, but just the regular habits that we would engage in were much more healthy just by virtue of what was available. So then when you exercise, it reduces stress. But now what happens? I go to school, I come home, I eat highly processed foods, I get on the computer, I get on my phone. And if there's something there that makes me upset, maybe something happened that really enrages me, now my levels of stress have come up, but I haven't had any exercise to offset that. And so now, eating bad things that goes inside of my gut, increased levels of anxiety, wondering, how do I fit into this world socially, combined with the lack of exercise and the lack of food? This whole like negative set of circumstances really create this downward vicious cycle. And I think that it ultimately leads to higher stress, higher anxiety. And so that gut mental connection with the vagus nerve, the vagus nerve that's connected between our gut and our brain starts to get inflamed. And it just has all of these other negative effects. And so I'm really, really concerned about the younger population because of the fact that this is the world in which they grew up and they never knew anything different. And so you and I, we can look and see the transition happening for them being digital natives. This is how it's always been. And so and unfortunately, if you're not of means and you don't have access to good food, the quality of that food is significantly worse. And so you can go to a fast food joint, get a meal for $5 to $10. Whereas if you're living in a way, hold on, my battery's going low.
That was a good one right there. I was like, wait a minute. I hear like the noise of windows coming at me right now. Like, it was a good one. And you were on a roll there too. I was like sitting there going, dude, I'm just like, I'm like ready to click yes right now.
Yeah. But to wrap up what I was saying, it's just unfortunate that the kids who are in a position where they haven't known any other way don't realize that their lifestyle is contributing to a lower quality of life. And that really saddens me.
I was reading this thing about ice cream, and you're right. It was funny. You said flag football. And you could get the difference because at the end of the socks, especially the high ones, you'd had red chevrons or gold chevrons or blue. You know what I'm talking about? So you're just so you're like, all right, cool. I got red ones. You got green ones. So you knew you had them, baby. You could just go play flag football with socks, right? Mm-hmm. And you're saying these things and I'm remembering them, but there was this awesome thing you can do. Where you can look at these posts that the people put in, you could look at on any social media. And basically what it is that you can see the ingredients from a lot of products like Chips Ahoy today versus Chips Ahoy in the 80s. And it's just absolutely crazy.
Ingredient lists in the 80s, ingredient lists in the
20s. Right. Yeah. But yeah, when you talk about sugar as it is, right? Sugar is anything, you can only handle a certain amount every day. So if you're going to have some like you got to balance, right? You got to find balance. Like, I'm not saying you can't go eat some cookies, but I sent you a text of some cookies we made, right? So we use organic raw cane sugar. And it's like, yeah, some people go, oh my God, like even for me, who's a purist or a very, very low sugar purist, I would say, look, the only way you should be getting sugar is through the food you're eating. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to use sugar, for me, I put a tablespoon of maple syrup in my matcha. That's what I use for sugar. And I don't use anything else. And you get so adapted to that point. But you've got people eating corn syrup, which disrupts your gut. Mm-hmm. You got people, and now even today, I read something today, Len, erythritol, it's like super popular. Like it's a non-sugar sweetener, erythritol. You've probably heard of it.
I've never heard of that.
Like a huge study that shows, and this is like a third or fourth one that has come out that says it causes like cardiovascular disease. Mm-hmm. It can contribute, and this is supposed to be something that massive amounts of people use erythritol. It's like, and I'm probably saying it wrong, but you're going to know what it is. It's in a lot of stuff. I won't. I try not to eat anything that has a what do they call it? Artificial sweeteners. So not stevia. That's a normal one. So like erythritol, dextro, or NutraSweet, Splenda, aspartame, any of that crap, right? Mm-hmm. Because that stuff is bad for you too. So you have every single thing in here that these people that kids are eating, and it's in the sugar, it's in the sodas, it's in the cereals. And then you no wonder you have ADHD. Oh, and then also, by the way, and I don't want to get on this train, but you're shoving all these freaking vaccines into these kids when they're still growing, and you don't think that affects them? And you and I have talked about this before. I witnessed it firsthand with my own kids because one of my kids got vaccinated differently, and it took about 5 years for that difference to go away.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, like, there were times when we would think, oh my gosh, it's like, do we need to go somewhere special? You know what I mean, Len? Like, do we need to, because there was such a drastic difference. And if we stratify the data, we sort the data, it always pinpoints back down to that. That's the affliction point right there, is when that, all those, oh, it'll be it's fine. You sure? It's like freaking like 10 things in one day or 2 days or something. Are you sure? Oh yeah, we do it all the time. BS you do. Maybe to some people, because, you know, depending on who you are in your blood or your physiology, depended on whether or not the COVID shot was a death sentence for you, right? Because there are a small group, there's a cohort of people that have a certain genetic makeup that when they take that mRNA, it causes it's just overclotting, right? Overclotting, and then all of that. You know, that's why you saw pilots and stuff like that dying, because they're in a situation where they're exposed to more clotting opportunities. So, and thrombosis. So, yeah, I think that a lot of kids today are suffering, and I think it goes back down to the fact that we've compounded this mental health crisis by, number one, we've promoted. I'm going to go out on the limb here for a second here. And maybe this is just because I listened to my mother and she's 78. A lot say this, but number one, I think that a lot of mental health in America today is attributed to social media, and the advert of social media, and the lack of real communication, the lack of real interaction with human beings. And it's okay for your kids to figure out how to not be bored, right? So I think it's that. I think it's feminism. I think it's feminism too, causes a lot of depression. I think that it's the medication. I think it's the school system. And I think it's the nutrition. And I think it's the society of crash out culture and hustle culture and all these different cultures. And you have to prove your worth. All of these different things that we piled onto people unnecessarily, that you and I didn't have. Pressures that you and I, and I'm not saying that we don't have pressures. We have pressures. We just, you know, but today it's like, it's so hard to eat whole food. Why is it so hard to eat whole food? It shouldn't be difficult to just eat chicken, but it's so difficult to eat chicken, right? And that's because we've been programmed so much to think that we just have choices and choices and choices, and we've been spoiled. And now it's just like, I mean, think about it, Len. You can watch whatever you want, however you want, whenever you want, and you get mad. Like, even you and I are guilty of this. We get mad when our cell service doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me right now, dude? Are you kidding me? Like, are you serious right now? There's way better. Like, you should be thankful that crap isn't working right now, because you ought to just roll the window down and breathe the air in maybe for a little bit, because this thing, it doesn't working. So yeah, I think that I think a lot of people, and you see it in these people, they know how to talk online, but then they get in front of each other, they have no idea what to do with each other.
Yeah, I think the solution, I want to be solution oriented with this topic in particular, because I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I think a couple of solutions, at least in my mind, is one, we've got to become more intentional as a country about the importance of whole foods that are nutritious and healthy, and using that as the foundation of our health, as opposed to waiting until we get sick and using medication as the foundation. I think that's one. I think the other one is to get back to really emphasizing the importance of exercise and of using sports and the interaction, because you talked about social media, and you also talked about, essentially, you didn't say it in these words, but kind of a social distancing, because of the fact that our lifestyles put us in silos, whereas sports puts us back together. And I'm not saying that.
I was going to say that, Len. I mean, think about you know, being solution oriented. Think about, I'm about to put all my kids in jiu-jitsu. Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, absolutely. Discipline, you know, camaraderie, the idea of competition, and all of those things. That's all important. And so,
think about it. You're an educator. Why are we not spending budget allocations? Why are we I'm not trying to throw California under the bus here, but why are we spending money on high-speed rail over the last 17 years instead of school programs for sports and things like that? Right?
No, I agree. I think more of an emphasis needs to go into sports, and also just more, because sometimes, like, for example, in basketball, you're going to have the top 15 people in a high school playing, but having intramural sports and having other community level sports, and they exist, but they're starting to lose their flavor. They're becoming less popular. And one of the reasons in football in particular is because of the whole CTE and the brain damage that it's been shown to cause. But there are plenty of other sports that give kids an outlet. And I think what happens sometimes is that some families over index for using sports as a way to gain wealth, whereas they don't necessarily look at sports as an opportunity to maintain their kids' health and overall well-being. And so, other solutions that I would recommend is really thinking about how we exercise mindfulness. And this is what I mean by that. We've never really been taught, Chris, if you think about it, how to process negative things that happen to us. It's almost as if you're either left to your own devices to be a person that looks at the world half full or half empty. But we don't really have a wide level of access to professionals and different conversations about, look, you're supposed to have hard times. Starting a business is supposed to be difficult. When you grow up, you're going to be, hurt by a boy or hurt by a girl, and you're going to get heartaches, and you're going to, get rejection. When you start a sales job, you're going to go and people are going to tell you no. Like, being able to effectively show how to struggle and how to respond to struggle, because it's just like when a kid falls at the park, one set of parents will be like, "Oh my gosh, baby, are you okay? Is everything okay?" Another family's like, "Oh, you're good, you're good." Watch how those two different kids react and respond. We as parents almost train our kids to cry when we coddle them, versus we train our kids to be resilient when we tell them just to dust it off and go keep playing. And so then imagine those messages that one kid gets from those coddling parents over and over and over reinforced, versus that other kid where the parents let them struggle a little bit. They grow up with a very, very different mindset. And I think that just collectively as a country, we need to start having those types of conversations about the importance of raising resilient, mentally tough kids, because we're raising a bunch of cupcakes. And because of that, over time, that cupcake mentality is, just think of the long-term effects of that. Think about what does that mean on the world stage? What does that mean when there's going to be a president in the White House in the next 50, 75, 100 years? What does that White House look like versus the White House that we've experienced in the past? And when I say White House, I'm talking symbolically of what that represents with regard to democracy, with regard to just our position in the world. And it all comes back to this conversation between gut health and mental health, because it all works together. And the moment we try to separate all of those things, that's the moment where we don't focus on anything, and then nothing becomes important. We just live life as it is. So I just really wanted to really touch on that, because I think that before it gets crazily off the rails, we really need to rein it back in and start having open conversations about what we do, how we interact, how we eat, and all of those things, and how they fit together.
I didn't think you were going to go hardcore like that with the cupcake name. Like that's a good one right there, Len. Like, I'm like, dang, Len, you brought it right there with the cupcake one. Like, I like that one. I kind of favor Snowflake a little bit more so. Like, I think that one, but cupcake is,
man, they go hand in hand.
Cupcake is pretty darn freaking good. But what's interesting about it is that I think you already see it happening. And I think that what you said, if we keep going down that path, the president won't be called the president anymore. They'll be called like the supreme leader or the supreme chancellor or something like that. Because whenever you see that type of language, that's when you know it's already done. Like supreme. But you're already seeing the prerequisites to that in California, because they don't refer to Newsom's wife as the first lady of whatever, or it's the first partner of California. You've seen that, right? So she considers herself, if she was to become president, or if Gavin Newsom, she would call herself the first partner. Because there's a video of her that says, I don't think America's ready for the first partner of America. And it's like, dude, who are these weird people?
Yeah.
You know, and there was that video that she forced her male children to play with dolls. Like, what's wrong with people right now?
Are you serious? I need to.
Yes, I'm not even kidding you, Len. It was huge, like last week or the week before. And I don't like to talk about people because it's gossip, and like, but you're a politician. You're coming out saying that crap. Like, you think that that's normal? You're like, that's not normal, dude. And maybe it is normal, but okay, that's fine. That's not normal for more than 50% of the population. Okay? Like, it's not. You're saying weird things. And then these are the same people that run the schools that groom the kids, the people like we saw go and try to shoot at the press dinner last night, or the night before, or whenever the press dinner was. Right? And then they combat it with the fact that they have crappy diets and no one really knows what's going on. They don't. And they think it's just, again, I think the biggest problem, if you were to simplify it today, Len, is that too many people have become reliant on the government. And too many people think that the government is supposed to solve your problems and fix things for you and do everything for you. The government is just there to maintain your sovereignty. That's really it. And to make sure that ABC Acme Co. is not dumping toxic waste into the water that we drink.
Yep.
Outside of that, like, what are they here for? What are you supposed to be doing? Maintain our sovereignty and make sure that local municipalities are doing the golden rule and the silver rule, by that matter too. And we've discussed the golden rule and the silver rule on the show before. You know, I think the silver rule is just as important as the golden rule, right?
Well, I believe that, we can disagree on a lot, and we do disagree on a lot. And I think that in this case, when you're talking about the role of government and the idea of limited government, I think we are lockstep. And I think that maybe there are some areas of deviation that you and I would have, maybe as it relates to maybe healthcare, maybe. But I think overall, when you talk about municipalities, give me my freedom and my sovereignty, give me the ability for government to, protect me and my family and my opportunity to rise up and give me, the opportunity. I don't want the government to give me that opportunity. I just wanted to create the space and the playing field to be able to have the opportunity to move forward and to have stratification. And I think that's the best type of government that one could ask for, man. And so, with that, man, I think we've had a good conversation today, man. What do you think?
I'm just interested to see what's going to happen now with Iran and what's going to happen because vessels are being turned back now and they're losing money, obviously. And I think that you're going to see that, I think within the next 30 days, because we're approaching that timeline now, things are going to start winding down. And I think just the fact that, and you've touched on this before, Len, that the decentralized leadership was going to be their strength, or was going to be the roadblock. I think that's what's slowing the peace process down, is because now you have factions. The only dangerous thing I think about the factions is that you could end up creating civil wars internally. And then but maybe, who knows, maybe that's a good thing that Iran has a civil war. Maybe that is, because realistically, when you have a civil war, whoever wins, that like settles the score outright, right? I mean, if in a civil war, whoever wins, that's the person in charge now, right? I mean, that's the way the rules of the game work, right? I mean
the strongest win, but ultimately,
if the South had won, this would be a different country.
Yeah,
right? Actually, you know what? If the South would have won, World War I might have been won by the Germans. I mean, who knows? You don't know what could have happened. So, I shudder. maybe Iran needs to go through a civil war. I don't know. I'm not a historian, but what's the price of oil here at this point? Because I'm sick and tired of paying for gas that's expensive. I really, really, really am, Len. Like
Yeah. So when you look at, as you look that up, the way I look at the situation as it stands today, which could change,
tomorrow,
right?
Tomorrow, it could change tomorrow.
Exactly. Which is, I believe that that Iran understands that it has a stronghold in the Strait of Hormuz, and that is a very, very powerful point of leverage. And I believe that they're not going to give that up because it creates an opportunity for them to gain more power. And the reason why that is so is because of the fact that 20%, as we've talked about before, of the oil goes through that strait, which other countries depend upon. And so even though the United States is open for business, the United States it's so far removed from every other place relative to the other sources of oil that their cost of oil would go up significantly higher. And considering the fact that the United States and Israel were the ones who essentially exacerbated this situation, maybe they didn't create it, but had the United States and Israel not acted the way they did, then oil prices would be stable and there wouldn't be this energy crisis that's looming. And so what I believe is that Iran understands that the longer this strait stays closed, because the United States struck first, that other countries will begin to look at the United States and say, look, we've appreciated our relationship throughout history, but right now our people are taking Molotov cocktails in the streets and they're blowing everything up and they're protesting like crazy. Their lights are off. They can't drive. They can't go to work. And if the ventilators turn off in some of the developing countries, now you're going to have more blood on our hands because more kids are dying. And so Iran understanding that by just saying, okay, let's war game this out, the longer this goes on, the more pressure is being exerted on the United States from afar, because there could be humanitarian crises that begin to erupt. And so Iran has no incentive to open up the strait. And I think they're quietly kind of happy that the United States decided to continue this blockade, because now they're not allowing ships out to go and service those other countries. So it's kind of working out for them, because now people are looking at the United States and saying, you guys are the terrorists. You guys are the ones. Can you
understand how insane that sounds for just a second? That's why
that sounds insane from their perspective.
Right. But I understand totally what you're saying, but at the same time, can you understand how insane that thought process is? Like, all of those people should be looking at how irresponsible their their government leadership is for essentially being held hostage by Iran. Like, I cannot even believe for a second that all of those countries, actually, you know what? Take it back. I can believe that all of those countries that are crying right now, that they don't have energy because of Iran right now. That's like me going, hey, where do you get your lemonade from? Oh, I get my lemonade from the drug dealer down the street. You buy your lemonade from the drug dealer? Yeah. Len, Len, come on. You know it's the same thing. You're buying energy from the person who wants to kill you, who is a terrorist. So I don't think any of these, what I think is going to happen, and what I think most people are going to do, because they're going to wake up, and here's where I might think what you just said there, Len, I'd be a little bit afraid of that, because people tend to want to believe the easy thing, and that's easy to believe, right? Whoever's causing you pain right now, that's what you're going to believe. But I think that the jig is up. And what I mean by that is that so many of these European countries have been completely screwed over by their aristocratic kings and queen government that they don't want to let go of for so long, that they're finally going, wait a minute, these guys are just a bunch of freaking liars. And they're probably looking at this right now going, their immigration policies suck and our countries are getting ran over. And by the way, we're buying oil from the place that these people are fleeing from. That this makes no sense to me. That's like going out and picking fruit from an orchard that we know has poison in it. And it's a 50-50 chance that when we get that apple home, Len, that it might kill us or not. That's the obscenity. That's the craziness of the world. Why would you even for a second entertain even doing business with a country that has that one of your biggest allies has sanctions on?
Okay, so
how is that even possible? Like that would like be me, like Len. That would be me going and having lunch with somebody that you have beef with.
Okay. Okay. Do you mean that literally or figuratively? Because I don't eat beef, but then the beef, that was a nice pun.
Like it could be a couple of puns in there, but you know what I mean? Like imagine like your enemy. Imagine an enemy that you have in the world today. And then I go, oh yeah, hey, by the way, Len, I had a great lunch with John.
Right. No,
and you go, oh, that's great. That's awesome. Like
I would
great,
definitely
awesome.
have an issue with that. But what you're saying, Chris.
Okay, then how do we not have an issue with people buying oil from a terrorist country?
I think there's a tinge, and please don't take this the wrong way. I think there's a tinge of hypocrisy in what you are saying. And this is the reason why. Every day, Chris, we buy shoes and furniture and like components for electronics from a country who runs roughshod on their people. And we're talking about China. And so
I'm glad that you're talking about China in a different light today, by the way.
I'm just saying, I'm using that argument that against you because I don't really know what China does to its people. But what I'm saying is if what you're saying is true and we buy goods and services from China, it's no different than people buying goods and services for Iran. It doesn't come down to humanitarianism. I'm surprised I'm making this argument and not you. But anyway, it comes down to dollars and cents, Chris. If we can buy something for 3 pennies on the dollar versus 100 pennies on the dollar, we're going to spend the 3 pennies and we're just going to turn our faces away from the sweatshops and the, suppressed currency and all of the other craziness that goes on. Because if I can get my gas for $1 a liter versus $4 a liter from America, I'm going to go to the place where I can get it for $1 a liter. Now, I don't want to know I don't want to know how the sausage is made. I just want to pay $1 at the gas station. And so we all, to a certain degree, live our lives like that. And so it's much easier for us to talk about oil because we have an overabundance of it. But if we had to go and purchase our oil from China or from Iran because they had all the oil, we would do it in a heartbeat because we want to drive our cars and we want to have our lifestyles. And so it's very easy for us because we can just go to Texas and Oklahoma and get our oil through fracking and go up to Alaska and have an overabundance of it, but other countries don't have that luxury. So I think we have to be careful about how we look at the actions of other people without necessarily looking at their specific circumstances that led them to those actions.
No, I agree with you. I see that and I agree with you. But at the same time, we shouldn't feel bad for the fact that we have the natural abundances that we have.
And you shouldn't feel bad for them buying oil from Iran.
Yeah, but I should when they're a terrorist and we're not doing business with them and we're not friends with them and they're saying death to us and we know there's an active tension and conflict amongst it. I mean,
but we're not buying oil from Iran. We're talking about Europeans.
That's what I'm talking about. Why have they not figured it out? I guess windmills and solar panels don't work for them.
But windmills.
Why haven't they been responsible? Why haven't they been responsible with figuring out energy solutions? You're telling me since 1978.
Okay. Oil is much more.
Okay.
Again,
let me ask you.
Sounding like you, oil is a much more efficient energy source.
Right? No, I get that. But here's the thing. Okay, let me ask you this question, Len. Iran has been weird since 1978. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So if you are a stable country, would you consider I don't know who's complaining right now that they can't get their oil from Iran. What European country is it? Is it Denmark? Is it France? Is it UK? Who is it? I don't even know who it is.
I have no idea.
Well, let's assume you are one of those countries, right? Let's assume whatever they are. See, this is the best part about it is we're not pundits, so we really don't even, right? But let's say you're one of those countries, right, that's buying oil from Iran. And you're a responsible country because you're trying to be Western, and you're just I'm not saying that Western countries are more responsible than anybody else. I'm just simply saying that you're responsible. You're trying to make it nice for your citizens, right? And this country says a threat from day one. Would you still do business? Would you probably would still do business, but then at that point you would probably start rethinking your long-term business strategies, and you'd probably start going, you know what, we probably ought to think of a backup plan over the next 10, 20 years, just in case, because they seem a little squirrely over there. You wouldn't do that? But
if France was doing business with Iran didn't say death to France. They said death to America.
I get that, but if America dies, France dies de facto. Because no one will be there. No one will be there when the Iranians invade France. Are you like if Iran? You know what? If Iran decided today in their battered state land to invade France, France would fall probably in 15 minutes.
No, that is not true, bro.
Yeah, they would.
France has a formidable army. They don't compare.
Len, look at their prime minister. Look at their prime minister.
They have seriously a military arsenal.
Okay, fine, Len. It would be 48 hours.
Okay, France.
It'd be okay. Let's just say, for example, all right, France would fall because you know why? I don't know why. Because America wouldn't be there to save them.
No, you're underestimating your French partners, man.
Underestimating what? Great country, by the way. 2026,
France is expanding its nuclear arsenal. It has a nuclear arsenal, upgrading its military hardware to strengthen European deterrence. Right now, they have a stockpile of 290 warheads, advancing the nuclear-armed Rafale. I know I'm battering that name, right. And planning a new nuclear-armed submarine. They already have nuclear weaponry.
You know why, though? You know why?
I know because NATO is being broken down, and
no, because Trump forced them to pay their bills.
But they've had military weaponry
only as of Trump. Okay, but there's a difference between having one and announcing to it that I'm going to expand it. If the shit hit the fan today, who's coming in to save everyone's butt?
Well, not America. That's
come on. Ooh, Australia? Who's coming in?
It's changing world dynamic, man. It's hard to say nowadays.
Okay. So let's say the axis of evil, the modern day axis of evil, you would probably put it as what? India, Russia, and China? Okay.
See, I don't look at it like that, man, but I understand what you're saying, and I'm
okay, well then who's the aggressors today? Who's the aggressors?
Who's the aggressors today?
You're going to say America. Right?
Answer that question, Chris.
Come on, Len. No, how?
Evidence say, I mean, let's just be objective, like seriously.
Okay.
On the world stage, if you look at the last 20 years, who has been some of the top aggressors, people that have taken military action on another country outside of its borders, not inside of its borders, outside of its borders?
African Russia,
facts. Those are facts.
And various African nations on themselves, and then also,
but I'm saying outside of their borders, Chris.
Well, those are borders. I mean, they're just because if you have one city or one state in Africa,
those are all civil wars. There's no. I will tell you.
That's all civil war then. Okay, and then obviously America would be on that list, and then Absolutely. But again,
so when you talk about, look, this is all I'm saying is that from your perspective, because we're Americans, we look and justify our actions because we believe that we're operating out of our own self-interest.
But I wish we wouldn't. I wish we would, like, for example, I wish that we wouldn't be in any military conflicts. I'm not about it. I think it's ridiculous. But at the same time, I don't know if there are other ways to deal with to deal with those who put themselves in power militarily, like, for example, Maduro, right? So how do you deal with something like that? How do you not allow dictatorships to become cancers and then result in world wars? Because realistically, that's what happened with World War One. That's what happened with World War Two. Right? You had a nation that rose up. It's not like America is being aggressive to annex nations. I mean, America hasn't annexed land or has an attempted to do it. Russia has. Russia wants to annex Ukraine. They annexed Crimea. So those types of conflicts and military aggressions certainly, I think, are different from the ones America does. America does military things because some people say regime shame, resource claim, whatever the case may be. But oftentimes America is forced to be brought into a lot of situations because someone's looking to be helped. Or at the same time, there are other people in there that are doing things that they ought not to do. Now, I'm not saying that America should be doing it, because I am anti-war and anti all of this stuff. In fact, I think we should bring home everything. Bring it all back. But then at the same time, can we even operate in that type of world anymore?
No, I mean, that last question is definitely a valid one. But I would say if you look at the history of America's aggressive actions on other countries, it's typically for two reasons. One is because they have oil and we need it. And two, they have access to other places so we could strategically place military bases there. Those are the main two things. And so we use the idea of stability and of democracy and spreading democracies as justification. But those countries that we have acted aggressively towards, they didn't ask for that. Now, again, you can...
Iran did. Iran asked for it.
No, they did not. No, they did not.
Man. How did they not?
Because one, we went and struck their nuclear facilities back in June, and they didn't do any...
Because they violated the treaty. They didn't allow the UN inspectors in under Obama.
But they did, though. That's the thing. And in fact, Trump talked negatively about the whole deal in the first place. And so we could go back and forth on the validity of Trump's claim versus Obama's claim. But what we're talking about right now is the United States taking aggressive action outside of its borders on another sovereign country. And so when we look at those acts of aggression, we've got to really understand that not everybody looks at what we're doing from the same perspective and through the same lens. And I just think that we need to be careful about how much aggression we decide to move forward. Last point that I'll make is because your president, President Trump, ran the idea that he was going to be the president of peace.
Of peace.
And he hasn't been that. And so my only thing is that before we get into more aggression throughout the world, I think we need to calm it down before things heat up, because we're really on the precipice of World War III, in my opinion. And I hope it doesn't get to that point. But man, we're moving counter to the ways that we've moved in the past, and I think it's a dangerous move.
I think that there are a lot of things. I know it doesn't sound right, but I believe that this is going to end very fast again. But at the same time, I don't agree with any military action like this, just simply because it's never clean, and it always ends up being a freaking mess. It always ends up being a mess, no matter what. Yeah, and we're already starting to see that. And everyone's paying the price for it.
I agree. Literally, at the gas pumps every day, man, I feel like I'm being robbed at gunpoint. Well, gas out here is between $6 and $7, man. Some places even more.
I think you have a lot to do, though, with voting for Governor Newsom for that problem, though. I mean,
brother, California.
I mean, he's almost out, though.
A long time.
It's been a problem for a long time. It's been an absolute problem for a long time. And it's not just Governor Newsom. It's the whole California legislature is just absolute trash. So regardless of who gets in there and becomes governor, every single person that is in there is going to have absolutely such a crazy challenge to do anything in there, because They're going to deal with a wacky legislator that's more wacky than Newsom is. But at any rate,
Interesting. And next week, what I want to talk about, man, is the whole thing with the Fed and Jerome Powell stepping down in May, and Kevin Marsh, maybe Kevin Warsh, maybe stepping in, and his philosophy and things like that. So I'm looking forward.
I was going to bring that up today, but I figured we'd want to save that for a different conversation because it's about to get pretty crazy in here, I think, with that kind of stuff switching around. So
it's going to be
I think that couldn't make Trump even that's going to be the happiest day in Trump's life, because I think that you're going to see massive leniency on economic restrictions, and you're going to start to see the money flow. I think anyways, that's because it's the only way you can get out of this issue.
Okay. I think Kevin Warsh is walking into a no-win situation, man. And I'll tell you why next week, but I think he's headed towards a dumpster fire.
I wouldn't want that job. I would not want that job at all.
$1 million, a quarter, I would not take that job, bro.
Hey, you know what? That's a big no.
Yeah, that's a
Forget it.
Absolutely. That's a quick no, brother.
But to answer your question, Len, yes, we did have a great conversation, I think.
Definitely.
Absolutely. We always do.
Always, man. So, hey, listen, if you're watching this, make sure that you like and subscribe. And we also want to just promote the idea of always getting together with someone that you disagree with, so you can have healthy discourse, even if you disagree with each other. So with that, Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. It's always good talking to you.
Adios, Len.
All right, brother.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.